Alright guys, Travis here, Perth Diesel Performance. Today's video, as you probably guessed it, scan gauge 3 and what it'll do for you. Now if there's anything specific you're after, check out the timelines below and jump straight to that section. So let's get right into it. Okay, so what is a scan gauge 3? It's an onboard diagnostic tool. What that means is it plugs into the OBDII connector, which is connected to the vehicle's ECU and CAN bus system, and it uses OBDII connection to then communicate with the scan gauge 3 and give you a heads up display of all the diagnostic data of your vehicle or engine make and model. So let's open the box and see what comes inside. Okay, so inside the box, one OBDII connector cable, really simple plug and play. We've got the mounting system here as well, that's all in the bag, and then we've got the scan gauge 3 itself. It's all padded inside this guy right here. One unit, scan gauge 3, and most important is the instructions, but really simple to use. I'm going to show you how to connect this straight to your vehicle. I'm actually going to connect it to my 300 series straight out of the box, and you're going to see how simple it is from the get-go. Okay, got the new scan gauge 3, new cable here. It's as simple as plugging the OBDII connector just down under the steering column. There's an OBDII connector. It's got to be within 25 centimeters of the bottom of the steering column, so it's just here. It's easy to locate. The connector will only go in one way. You've got a fair bit of length on this cable, so you can run that up to the dash. My car, obviously I've already got one in it. I've trimmed in the cable behind nice and neatly, but I'm going to plug in a brand new unit and show you how simple it is. So let's jump in and do it. Okay, so we're in the vehicle. We've plugged in the OBDII connector. Now it's just time to put the other end of the connector to the scan gauge 3. It's a little Cat 5 connector. Literally just going to plug it into the back. Going to hit a little snap lock fitting. It's now plugged in, and you're going to see it start to boot up. It's as simple as that. It's literally a plug and play. It cannot get any simpler. Okay, first of all, you're just going to accept. Would you like to view the quick tutorial? Yes or no, depending on your information, what you know about it. Let's just go yes. And talks here about adjusting the brightness and how easy it is. And that's as simple as 2 fingers up and down on the screen at any point in time, and it dims it down or up. So we can go next. It's quite good. It's a very intuitive system, and it's really simple for those that get scared away from something that's electronics and technology. This is one of the simplest little gadgets you're going to put in your vehicle. Before you even get to the vehicle, I highly recommend getting the instructions as we open out of the box. Now they're not big instructions, which is very impressive to me. It's pretty much 5 easy steps. We're going to run you through each one step by step. First one is this quick start installation. The second one is the setup, scan gauge, using the scan gauge, Wi-Fi update. Well, that's not step 4. Step 4 is calibrating your scan gauge, and then learn how to save fuel with your scan gauge. So 5 easy steps, front and back, as you can see, really simple. So let's jump into it. So first step 1 is the quick start. Pretty much covers off connecting the OBDII plug into the OBDII connector, powering it up, and connecting the plug into the back of the unit here. So really straightforward and simple. Step 1, pretty much easy. Okay, now step 2. So we're going to go into the more options screen, then we're going to go to setup, and first things you're going to see is the display. You can choose your color presets, and you can customize that to completely whatever you want to see. Cool little function down here. You can see straight away you can dim it to wherever you want your base setting. And then across the top, you're going to hit across here. You've got display, vehicle, units, adjust, and advanced. Now vehicle, you're going to jump straight into there. Now you can set the tank size. If you're unsure of your tank size, you can go on the internet, look up your vehicle make and model, or best of all, jump into the owner's manual, have a look at that. And if you've got an aftermarket tank, well, that's something you're going to have to work out to your vehicle specification. Then you've got engine size in literage. You've got fuel type, diesel, hybrid, LPG. So go through, set all that up. Then also moving over, you've got your units. So temperature, you want it in Celsius or Fahrenheit, distance, kilometers or miles, volume, liters or gallons. Pretty much self-explanatory. Pressure, for your boost pressure, if it's turbocharged, or whatever pressures you're using, if it's PSI, KPA. Currency, that's related to fuel. So it's going to calculate what the fuel usages cost you. And then obviously we've got over onto adjust. Now speed, you can do a correction factor with your speedo. So this is a cool little function in here as well. If you've got upgraded tire sizes, you can set that with a GPS in-vehicle navigation on your phone, or if you know how much it is out by measurements, you can do a correction. You've got heaps of functions in here as well. So the list goes on, but we'll jump over to advanced as well. You've got more items in here as well. You can do a Wi-Fi update. Now that is a really cool feature, because now you've bought this electronic device, you can constantly update it to the latest software layout. So it's like an iPhone, it'll always be up to date and where it needs to be. So that pretty much covers off all of that functions and setup. So we'll move on to step number 2. Okay, so moving on to step 3, back to the home screen, and I'm going to jump straight into gauges, because that's generally where I use the Scan Gauge 3. So as you're going to see, the home screen, it's got 9 index points and different readouts. You can now customize them to see and lay them out how you want. Now there's multiple screens in here, 1, 2, 3. It's going to change between the different screens, and you have options to then change what you want to monitor. Okay, so now we've gone through the 3 different screens. It's as simple as touching on whichever position that you want to change. So up here we'll go previous, liters per 100. I don't want to see that. Say I want to look at battery voltage. I'm going to select that, and now that top left-hand monitor is doing my battery voltage. We've got vehicle speed down the bottom. Say in the top right up here, I want to go and look at, say, EGT. So bank 1, sensor 1. I'm going to select that. So now I've got EGTs up there. On the right-hand top, you can now come back down, and I can be looking at engine RPM and so forth. So you can customize any which way you want. The layout is another thing that you can also do. So that's a really cool feature as well. So that's as easy as jumping into the little wheel in the bottom right-hand corner, hitting that, and across the top, you're going to have display, and then the next middle box says layout. You hit layout. Now it says 3x3, 2x2, 2x3. So you can hit one of them and you'll see how the layout changes, and it doesn't have as many displays. So it depends on what you want to see. If you want them to be bigger, obviously less displays, but you've still got 3 screens. So remember, you can slide between them. So you can have something that's got core things you want to watch, and then other screens can have a lot more going on. Okay, so the next tab option is monitors. That is a really cool bit of gear with this Scan Gauge 3 that I really love. It gives you the ability to monitor many different things. You don't have to be watching that. So if you've got transmission temperatures, coolant temperatures, battery voltages, EGTs, you don't need to be watching the dash or the Scan Gauge 3 like a hawk. It's going to tell you, it's going to come up on the screen and it's going to alarm you. It can give you an audible alarm, and it's as simple as hit one of these boxes that says empty, and then you're going to go through, let's see, battery voltage. We're going to select that, and then we're going to say it's equals or it's a below, and then we're going to say it's below, say, 11 volts. And we're going to hit save. And now also you can come in here and monitor alert sound. So you can change the volume 1, 2, and 3. So you can actually hear different sounds and volumes, what you want to hear in there. So it's as simple as that. Now you can do all 6, you can not set any up. It's completely user orientated to what you want to monitor. And then we're going to go next item they're going to look at is trip. That's what they've got in the manual there. So let's jump onto that. So you can jump into the trip. Now this is calculated over the fuel you put in. You enter how much fuel you put in your tank. It's going to read the odometer reading from the vehicle, from the OBD plug. So it is reading the distance traveled from the vehicle. However, I do want to make a special note that doing the speedo correction will definitely help this data, and that is because if you change the tire size, you notice that your speedo isn't correct. Now this unit is only going to read what the vehicle is correct off the vehicle. If you change the tire size and you know your speedo's out, this guy here is only going to read what the vehicle reads. So go in, do that calibration on the percentage error of your tire sizes. So get a GPS. If it's 4%, 11%, whatever it is, adjust it. It may need a little bit of ongoing to get the results so they read true. Once you set it up, it stays in there, and it's really simple and easy. And also, the calculations do compound over tanks of fuel. Don't expect to put it in there and one tank of fuel in it's going to be, you know, telling you all the information it needs to know. It's learning how much fuel you put in and how you drive, and it's reading it, and it's going to take an average. So the more distance you do, the more accurate the average is going to be. So you've got current information, fuel usage you've got today, you've got previous, and then also you've got in here tank. So it's going to tell you your fuel use and all that sort of stuff. A lot of guys that run aftermarket or bigger tanks, they really like this function. Like I mentioned, it takes a little bit of setting up and teething. Once you've got it done, the feedback we get, they really love it. So if you want to monitor your trip and fuel usage, guys really like this Scan Gauge 3 for that. So if that's you, it's a real big tick. Now the next one I want to say is scanning. That's probably, other than the gauge set out in the display, for me personally, I really love it from a diagnostic point of view. It gives you the ability to scan the vehicle, and if you have an engine light on or a trouble code, you can see what it is, and it can direct you in the direction to try and work out what's going on, so that you can clear the code and understand what's happening under the bonnet in your vehicle and why that code's coming up. Now, it's as simple as hitting the scan button. It's going to sit there and it's going to scan the engine. At the moment, I don't have the engine running, so it's going to sit there scanning. However, with the engine running or ignition on, it's going to sit there and scan the vehicle and look for pending and trouble codes and things that are sitting in the background. And once it's found them, then you can force clear and you can clear the codes. But I highly recommend, if you do have a problem with the vehicle and the code's coming on there, take a photo on your phone or record the code, because if it comes back later, you've got a bit of, oh, what was that code again? I know what that was. Oh, that's been coming up a bit, and you can talk to whoever's servicing or working on your vehicle, and you can get some consistency to it. And the best tip about taking a photo with your phone is your photo is tagged with a date and time. So you've got a bit of a track record of how often you're having that problem. These scanners and OBD clearers, they boot up and they work very fast and great. I would say they are one of the best on the market, in the fact that we've got workshop equipment here, and that boots really fast. Obviously it's very expensive gear. These Scan Gauge 3s, they boot up really quick and they're efficient, and it gives you as an end user the ability to do the same thing we do and see the code in the comfort of your own house, workshop, or when you're out in the back of the tracks. Because the last thing you want to be is in limp mode with no throttle in 4th gear, and you're using high fuel consumption to get home where you've had no reception or no help. So it's a great get you out of trouble scenario, and you can understand what's going on. And may I also say that when your vehicle is in limp mode, I highly don't recommend that you push the boundaries of what you're expecting from the vehicle, because it is in a limp mode. And the one thing I'd be saying to you, you need to monitor is EGTs and trans temperatures, because it will limit what the vehicle is, like what gear it'll go to and the power output. And you're going to be pedaling the vehicle if you're towing or off-road and asking more for it. So all I'm going to say, keep an eye on EGTs, coolant temperatures and trans temperatures, drive to the conditions, and just get the car back safely wherever you are. So that's a little bit of an insight from myself. So on that, I've actually got a bit of a story. I got a good friend. They were out on a trip out north of Perth, up at Shark Bay, Point Perrin. Actually had a Triton, and he was out remote out there, and he went to limp mode, so couldn't accelerate, wouldn't go anywhere. Engine lights on, no one around. They managed to flag someone down. They got towed out, so had very limited throttle. The gearbox wouldn't, had no power. They got into Shark Bay. There was a very kind guy there with the workshop. He scanned the vehicle, and he said to Brian, he goes, "Oh, it's this code." And he goes, "I know what that is," straight away. Well, it was a throttle controller. Brian knew exactly what happened. He jumped straight on a dash, looked at the connector. The connector had come adrift, and the reason was corrugations and off-road conditions. Been in the car for 3 years, worked fine. However, off-road, things move, corrugations, it happens. Now, if he had had an OBD reader, he would have seen the code, and it would have directed him straight to the issue, and he would have been out there enjoying the trip. However, it brought the trip short very early, high stress. They ended up cancelling the trip and going home because it just turned pear-shaped, so to say, and it spoiled the trip. So if you have an OBD reader, it could have saved the day, cleared the code, gone on and enjoyed it. And let's just say now he owns an OBD2 reader, so he doesn't have that problem again. That's a story that often happens with a lot of people. They come and buy it after they've had that scenario. And I couldn't say it enough. People will say to me, well, why do I need it? I haven't had a problem. But it's about being self-sufficient and preventatives, because the last thing you want to do is plan a 2-week holiday and get cut a week short, or you're in a town and it's Saturday, Sunday and everything's shut. So you're sitting around waiting. This gives you the efficiency to look at it yourself, do some understanding. Google's a good source of knowledge as well, so you can be self-sufficient, get back on the road and enjoy your trip. Okay, so we've covered off a fair bit of the Scan Gauge 3 now and how simple it is, but it even gets easier, and we're going to jump into a little bit more complex stage, but it's actually not, and I love this Scan Gauge 3 for this factor. So we've covered off the scan, the gauge, and we've gone into more and all the setups. What we're actually going to do is now go into more, and we're going to go into X gauge. Now what X gauge is it's going to look for the sensors and the inputs that are specific to your vehicle. So not every car has all the same sensors and how it's all set up. When I say it doesn't have all the same sensors, is how it's reading it and where it's reading it. So versus Scan Gauge 2, you had to sit there and manually program it in. You still, however, can do that in Scan Gauge 3, but the best thing about this one, watch this. All you do is hit auto scan, and then you're just going to go down to your make and model. Wow, Jeep, yeah, no, not Jeep, Toyota, that's what we've got, that's the one I want. We're going to select it, we're going to hit start scan, and I mean, boom, it's that easy. It's almost finished. So it's just sitting here now going through, and it's going to pick up all the sensors and all the custom PIDs and everything that's been put together in the back end for you. Really simple and easy, just like that. There we go. And as you can see, just like that, that's probably got to be about 20 seconds, not even. And now I've got a series of, I'll give you an instance, it's what's got in here, trans temps, it's got oil pressure, regen status, DPF, intercooler temps, intercooler pump, current gear, lockup status, fuel remaining. So now I'm just going to hit select all, and then I'm going to go save, and bang. Now they're all in my data inputs back in when I want to monitor. So if I go back out and I go to gauge, I can now customize and put them onto my screen, and I can get all those information. Now go back to setup, and then you're going to go to Wi-Fi update, and it's going to go check for updates. It also tells you in current version of software in there at present, so you can go update, and it's going to sit there and it's going to scan. It's now looking for a Wi-Fi connection. So yes, we're going to connect to PDP. We're going to go select, and then we're also going to put the password in for your Wi-Fi connection. Okay, so we've connected to the Wi-Fi connection, and it's detected now that we've got different versions of software. You can backdate the software as well if that's needed. However, we were at 1.24, remember I was saying there, and obviously got all the way back to 1.16. So you can scroll through this screen as well. We're going to actually hit 1.25. We're going to go select. It's going to say it's going to download, and it's going to run you through a sequence. It doesn't take long at all, so it's just downloading as we speak. Like I just said before, it is such a simple item to use. And now you can see on the screen, it's going through the download process, and it's giving you a readout. Okay, so it says the download's complete. It's going to restart the device, and boom, simple as that. It's going to go accept, like it powered up. It just goes through the reboot procedure as if you originally plugged the unit in. And then we can go to more, and we can go to about, and straight away we're at 1.25. It's as simple as that. So that is how you upgrade the software in the Scan Gauge 3, and also how you know what unit, what version of software you're running. Okay, so the next button from the main home screen is going to be on the more side, and we're going to go to the fill up function. This is one we get asked a little bit about from customers, and may not have followed some of the steps in the instructions. So when I mentioned about setting the tank size, set that, obviously your vehicle setup like I mentioned earlier in the video. Now you're going to set the fuel cost. So however much it costs to fill, you can hit the right tab here and you can go back and you can go, I already had $2 in there, or you can go $2.20, $2.30, $20, whatever it is per litre or gallon, whatever you set that up to, that metric will change. So let's go back and put that back to $2. Now in the instructions, it mentions in here as well, and it's in red, so I want to make a key point of it. The first time that you navigate to it, it says, on your first fill up, do not make any adjustments to the indicated fuel. Simply press save. So what they're saying is you're not trying to tell it what you've used. All you're doing is saying you've filled the tank, you've set the dollar amount, and you've set how many litres go into that tank. So we're just, like I showed you then, 100 litres, it's $2 a litre. We're just going to go save, fill up complete, yes. Now, tank trip stats. It's not going to have any stats in there because we've just filled it up. It hasn't gained any information. Now the next step, it goes on to the instructions and it says, next press the fuel cost tab, enter the cost, which I mentioned to you, then hit save. Keep the scan gauge connected to your vehicle and use the vehicle normally, or however you're driving it. Obviously you can't change that, just drive it how you normally drive it. Normal means just use the vehicle. Once you reach approximately quarter of a tank fuel left in the tank, follow the directions in step 2. Step 2, it guides you to fill the tank from a quarter of a tank or thereabouts. It says fill up your tank again. Be sure to let the pump shut off automatically, so don't try and you fill it up how you'd normally fill it up. If that's a long range tank and you've got to do whatever you do, something special, do that how you'd normally fill it up. Now it says go to more, and then it says go to fill up. Use the fill up function. Obviously the lighting in here is not that great. Use the fill up function to tell the scan gauge you have filled the tank and entered the amount of gallons or litres, whatever metrics you're using there, from the home screen. Follow the sequence shown to the left. So pretty much you want to put the fuel in the vehicle, then tell the scan gauge how much fuel you've put in it. That's when you hit the fill up button. So use the fuel cost tab to enter the price, because obviously every time you fill up, the price is going to change, and this is where it's going to record all that data for you. And if you're watching it and monitoring it for fuel cost as well as fuel or litres used, it's going to monitor that for you as well. So when it's time to fill up, when you've got down to that quarter tank mark, go to the service station, fill the tank up till it normally clicks off like you did on the first tank. Then you're going to come into the setup, and then you're going to come to the fuel screen, and then you're going to put in that you did, say, a quarter of a tank. We're going to go 70 litres, and then we're going to hit save, and it says fill up complete. I'm going to go yes, and now it's going to come through and it's going to give me trip stats. Now it's going to take a few tanks to get through the algorithm so it knows how much fuel you've used. Just play with it, and different aftermarket long range tanks, it is going to take longer because what it's reading off your gauge is different to how this is using it off fuel literage and odometer reading. So all the inputs that you put into it, it's only going to give you back the information, the correct information if you put it in. So tyre size, tank size, and how many litres you put in there, they're very critical. So make sure those three factors are set correct. Otherwise it doesn't matter how many litres you put in there, nothing's going to be right, because if you're 2% out over an 800 kilometre trip usage of the fuel tank, you imagine how much that affects your fuel usage readout from the scan gauge 3. So those little percentage changes change a lot over a bigger distance, so just bear that in mind. That's pretty much most of the scan gauge 3 setup. One thing I haven't covered off is mounting. It's really simple and easy. It's a suction cap, so suction cap to the windscreen, and then it's a magnetic mount that goes straight to the back of the scan gauge 3, and you can just click it straight on, and it's as easy as pulling this one off here that I've got on my windscreen and connecting it on. Preferably, I like the base of it sitting resting on something on the windscreen so it doesn't vibrate around while you're using it. How you mount it in your vehicle or where you like to look at it, that's going to change for you. Another key point is when you're night driving or day driving, once again, that simple swipe up and down for the display and dimming it. Little fun fact there as well, sometimes you might be driving and you've dimmed it right down at night, you come back in the morning and it's really dim. just remember it's not off, you just got to dim it up. It's just the outside brightness. So great thing. Polarized glasses, screen works really well. Dust and off-road environments, screen works really well. But if you do have really sticky or dirty fingers, the screen is a touch screen, so now and then I would say maybe clean it with an alcohol wipe, because it is a touch screen, it's not buttons. So bear that in mind if you're touching something on the screen or the screen's swiping up. If you've got sticky stuff on your fingers, it's a capacitive type screen. It is going to be reactive to things stuck on it. Okay, so hints and tips with the ScanGauge 3. One thing I'm going to say, this guy here, you can plug it in. If you're with a friend and you're traveling, you can go from car to car. However, once it's been set up in one car, or the first time you set up in your car, you may come up against some things that may not wake up or power up. So I'm going to run you through some little hints and tips about that. So to do that, what we can do, so we'll go back into more, we'll go to setup, and you're going to see in here, we're on the advanced stage, which is the far right hand side of the screen there. When you go into there, you've got mode, you've got all the OBDII modes, so there's different ways and what it's looking for. You can change that. It is going to scan the vehicle and what you're looking for when it first powers up. However, you can put it on auto and you can go force, and it's going to connect and it's going to look for that. The next tab down, it's actually doing something at the moment, so I can't scroll down on that one, is the update rate. So that is the refresh rate at what the sensors change and become live. So let's just say, instance, for if we talk about the dash on the car itself, the temperature, you might see it just sits there and goes, well, this car's never overheating, it never moves. But when you actually watch it on the ScanGauge 3, you're going to see it go up 2 degrees, 1 degree, 5 degrees, and you're going to look at your dash and it's not even going to move. That's because the update rate is very slow. This thing here, you can change it to be fast, slow, however you see fit. You are going to notice some things. You're going to question your dash and go, that gauge doesn't move, but this one does. When I say that, that's because they don't want to, the manufacturer doesn't want to scare you that your car's overheating because your temperature gauge is doing this up and down. It's distracting and concerns people. So that's when I talk about refresh rate. That's how quick that becomes reactive. Now, sleep rate. You can change the voltage or the RPM at what the unit turns off to. So when you turn the car off, the RPM is going to turn off. That's when the sleep event's going to happen. Or you can go into comms or voltage. So when the voltage drops, that means the alternator's not running, the car's off, the unit's going to drop off. Then we got Wi-Fi update. We touched on that earlier. That's your update function there. And then you've got reset to default. So if you want to reset the unit completely back to how you pulled it out of the box, that's how you're going to do that in there. And then under that, compatibility. Also, you can go to edit settings, and then you've got the wake up voltage. So this is another one as well. You've obviously got it, generally it's going to come on normal, you can go on high, or you can go on low. And it gives you a little blurb under here, which is something great in the ScanGauge 3 and the screen. It's really intuitive how it'll give you a little, I'll show you in another screen if I can it'll give you, see here, gives you a little question mark. So you can actually hit them and it'll explain what that does. So if you see that question mark, hit it, it's going to give you, you don't need the owner's manual, you can read it right there and then off the screen. I think that's a cool little function they've put in there as well. That pretty much covers off all the setup with the ScanGauge 3. I love this bit of gear. As you can see, it's in my car. I run it, I love monitoring it, especially if you've got an automatic and you want to watch those transmission temperatures, EGTs. I think all the new cars with DPFs, everyone doesn't want a DPF. However, having a DPF now, you have the sensors in there. These guys give you the ability to read it, so you don't need to buy gauges in your vehicle. You can have the best of both worlds. You can read and scan OBDII codes and also get all that heads-up display. So a massive tick for me. Okay, so what gauges should I be looking at and what really mean anything to me? So straight away, if you're running an automatic transmission, I highly recommend watching the torque converter temperature. Now there's two transmission temperatures on some model vehicles. You've got one in the pan, that is the oil soak temperature, the sump of the transmission. That isn't going to be fluctuating as much. So you might just see it at, say, 70 degrees, somewhere give or take around there, operating. Now, when you're working the transmission, the torque converter is the one doing all the work. That's the one that's going to move up and down. That's the temperature that you want to be monitoring. As for engine temperatures, exhaust gas temperatures, so EGTs, that's the combustion temperature that's coming out of the engine. So that's the one you want to be watching, how hard you're working, especially if you're towing. So if you're towing, automatic transmission temperatures, EGT temperatures, if your vehicle's got a DPF in it. Now, if your vehicle's had a DPF delete and they've got all those sensors and throw them over your shoulders, you might want to check if they're in there and they're plugged in, because they've just been deleted. This guy can't read something that there's no sensor there. So just bear that one in mind as well. And now another one, if it has been tuned and you plug in any OBD reader and it all reads zeros, they've zeroed the file out and they've just defaulted read zero, or they've maxed it out the other way, or it reads nothing because the sensors aren't there. So just bear that in mind. One sensor that is always going to work, and if it doesn't, I'd be very concerned, is the engine coolant temperature. I touched on it earlier in saying how it may move. You are going to see it move. Don't be alarmed by it. But the key factor that you know your cooling system's efficient is if you're going up a hill, you're going to see the coolant temperature rise. The EGTs are going to come up. They're going to move faster, and they're the first ones that's going to move. They're the ones that move real time. Then the coolant temperature is going to soak in all that temperature. That's going to come up afterwards, and it's going to stay a little bit longer. However, you do want to see the coolant temperatures drop off on the other side of the hill. How fast that drops off determines how efficient your cooling system is. So let's put two vehicle manufacturers back to back here. Everyone knows a Toyota's cooling system is on point. And now if we say, if you've got a Patrol, we know they run hot. So if you're monitoring a cooling system on a Patrol, you know they're running hot. So you need to keep an eye on it. It's a known fact. So the coolant, the radiator, if you're off-road, you've got lots of spin effects, or you've got lots of things that are blocking cooling efficiency, airflow, the cooling system is going to take longer to lower that temperature. And that's how you're going to know when you need to pull the radiator out and clean all the debris out the front, because the coolant temperature isn't dropping as fast as it used to. Most people get to know their car, and that's what I'm saying. Monitor, know what's normal, and then you'll start to see things that aren't normal. And you can play with those alarms, because you go, well, I know I've had that set at 100 degrees and it's never come on, and it's come on now. Something's adverse, ambient temperature, something's gone wrong with the engine, something needs servicing on the vehicle. So that's a bit of an idea, so you can monitor your vehicle and know exactly where it is. And there's one thing I'll say, if it's running hot, it's going to be inefficient. Okay, so just to recap on this video, one thing, instruction manuals. I know we all say they're boring and don't read them. It's going to be your best friend. It's not like reading chapters of information. Like I said, I've literally ran you through it, 5 easy steps. This guy here as well, it's a little tech tips. That's a little go-to as well. Great bit of information. Keep them in the glove box, because when you need this gear, you may not have phone reception. You may have a Scan Gauge 3, but if you don't know how to use it, that's not much good to you. So same as like we say with a lot of our kits, understand what you've got and know how to use it. It's going to get you out of a pickle, and that's why we love Scan Gauge 3s. They're really easy to use. So like I said, read these guys. I can't say it enough and enough. Other than that, enjoy your Scan Gauge 3. I'll see you on the tracks, guys.